Hey, everybody. Hope you are doing well. I want to do a 2-for-1 on the classic Tower of Power song, What Is Hip? I'm going to do the live version from Chicago in 1977. And it's an upbeat version. It's a faster tempo than the original studio recording. So I think you get to hear both Tower Power pushing the tempo a bit and performing it live. And it's just, I think it's interesting to hear how they pull it off live. And they pull it off live, trust me. The second version that I'm going to do is by one of my favorite bands, Gov't Mule. And there's a story behind that I will get to before I introduce that particular half of this 2-for-1. So without further ado, here is the live performance of What Is Hip by Tower of Power, 1977.
What is hip? If you're really hip, the passengers will shout. What is hip? I'd like to know, yeah. What is hip? Is it in the style of the man? What is hip? Is it in the clothes that you wear? What is hip? Is it in driving a big fine car? What is hip? Is it in trying to be a movie star? I got to know what is hip, y'all. Now can you tell me what is hip, yeah? Now do you know? Is it the hat, the clothes, the car, the tie, the style you wanna be? Hey, I got to know. What is hip, y'all? Oh, I got to know.
It's really an incredible live performance. Again, it's probably 20 BPM faster than the original studio recording. The band is just killing it. And the horn section, obviously, it's, I love it. I'm a big Chicago fan, so why wouldn't I not love Tower of Power's horn section? Okay. The live performance is great because, there's just dancing and everything going on. It's friggin' fantastic. And again, the song is a classic. You can't help but chair dance in that. I was chair dancing, but then I kept getting distracted by the video that I've shrunken in the corner because I don't want to get a copyright strike on putting up the video. It's just a fun song. You cannot help, like I said, you cannot help but chair dance to it. You just can't. With that said, we're gonna go to the Gov't Mule version next. Now, you might think, why would I play the Gov't Mule version when this was so great? Well, the Gov't Mule version has a kind of a touching story behind its happening. Gov't Mule's bass player, the original bass player, Alan Woody, passed away. And shortly after he passed away, the band contemplated whether or not to continue on. That would be the rest of the band, Warren Haynes and Matt Apps, the drummer. And they decided that they would. And they first made the decision that they would never perform as a trio ever again. So they brought in a keyboard player, Danny Luis. And then before they found themselves a regular bass player, they decided that they wanted to do some kind of tribute to their late comrade, Alan Woody. And so they started to reach out to bass players who were Alan Woody's heroes or inspirations. And they contacted people like, Les Claypool and Victor Wooten and Flea and, just a number of bass players. And what they found is that not only were the bass players that they reached out to receptive and honored to be asked and wanted to do it, but they reached out to other bass players who were fans of Alan Woody who wanted to do it. So it turned into instead of just a standard, 10 to 12 track tribute album, they ended up doing 2 double albums. And then performing on those 2 double albums over the course of, I think, about a 2 to 2.5 year time period, culminating with a massive 6.5 hour live performance in New Orleans at a jazz festival, at which many of the bass players who performed on the studio recordings came out and performed live with them. While they were touring, they still didn't have a permanent bass player. What they had was whatever bass players were available to play shows with them would come in and sit in. So you'd go to one of their shows and you'd see any number of guest bass players coming up on stage. I saw them at the House of Blues in Hollywood during that tour, and I saw them perform with Dave Schools from Widespread Panic on bass. Then they switched to Alphonso Johnson, who brought out an upright bass, and then they finished off with Jack Cassidy from Jefferson Airplane and Hot Tuna. And then they brought all three bass players on stage to play the encore. And what was amazing is when they would play with a different bass player, the band would totally change up their style. So for like example, when Dave Schools was on stage, they played classic Gov't Mule songs. When Alphonso Johnson came out with his upright, it was like a mini 30-minute, 35-minute long jazz set that was just phenomenal. And then Jack Cassidy came out, and it just turned into sort of this classic rock thing. They landed on some Hendrix stuff, they landed on some other tracks, and it was an amazing transformation, showing that the band's versatility was virtually unlimited. So when they were getting ready to do the studio recordings tribute to Alan Woody, they gathered bass players also like I said, Victor Wooten and Flea and Les Claypool, but then you also had people like Mike Watt, and you had people like Jack Bruce and John Entwistle and Bootsy Collins, and just all these legendary bass players who wanted to come along and play with them as a tribute to their fallen comrade. One of the bass players who came along was the bass player from Tower of Power. And they did this version of What Is Hip that we're about to listen to right now.
So you wanted to bounce your trick bag, ease them into tip bag. You ain't
Super fun song. It's a cover, doesn't have the horns in it. Killer keyboard solo. Warren's use of an envelope filter in the middle section while the keyboard's doing its keyboard solo work. Nice use of the envelope filter in a timely spot. And again, you can hear Tower of Power's bass player just pounding it out, and it kind of sounds like he's playing it with a purpose. Again, obviously they're paying tribute to the late great Alan Woody, but you could just kind of hear that the bass is just playing with there's some emotion. There's some emotion there. There just is. It usually probably happens when you're sort of honoring somebody. There's going to be some emotion in the recording session. Hey, I hope that was fun for you as it was for me. Please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below and we can talk about it further. Know that I appreciate you and I wish you all well. Okay? Take care.